Okay, so how many of us are here, right? We are six people?
Around 12 people, like 11 people, I guess.
Oh, 11 people. Okay, interesting. So all of you are students, is that is my understanding right? Or how is it?
Some of us are students, some of us are working professionals. Like it varies. There is a varying profile of people here.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Okay. So how do you want me to start? Like you want me to start about telling myself and then we'll start questioning?
Yeah. You can just give us a brief on like what kind of work are you doing right now, and what has been
Mhm.
your journey so far, so that we can learn from your entire,
Interesting.
work.
Okay, nice. Uh, First of all, thank you for making me part of it. And I I am an innovation professional throughout. So when you say innovation professional, it may sound like a buzzword, but it's a very interesting job with a very fluid profile. Okay, so there are two keywords in my life to explain my life. One is innovation, second is fintech. So I'm always in the part of when you interfere both of them, then that's started. I'm an engineer and then also a management professional. And then my early journey started at a very interesting company called National Payments Corporation of India, which where I was able to work on very famous products. Today, there are very famous products like UPI, Beam, FastTag, RuPay, and continuously I was part of the innovation journey there, and I led some interesting open innovation projects inside NPCI, worked with multiple startups there, and then moved on to head innovation corporate innovation vertical at T-Hub. So T-Hub, I think most of you may know, is world's largest startup accelerator, and there I got a chance to expand my spectrum in the fintech world, also some peripheral domains, and started working with multiple startups and corporates as well. So I excel there in understanding the requirements of the corporates and what it takes for them to innovate and try to design some institutional programs for them and also get some startups and innovators and some experts to work along with the innovation teams and create value propositions for their next Horizon 2, Horizon 3 kind of an agenda. And later I started doing independent consulting. I was working with IIM Ahmedabad and an organization called Microsoft Consulting, where I again started consulting a lot of startups, took on product management as well as their growth and helped around 60, 70 startups. That was extremely high intensity consulting, which was happening there. And then I moved on to an institution called BroadRidge, where I'm currently right now. I had the innovation vertical there and a venture studio. Idea of a venture studio is to create a startup inside an organization and work again, like I said, Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 projects and create future star products for a company right now, which is earning well today. So, so that's the concept. And if you see the whole journey, right? Yeah, in between I started few startups, but it didn't work well. I had to stop. But I latched on to doing something. I'm also a faculty or a course creator for an organization called Emeritus, which where I worked with the best of the universities across the world to create fintech courses for them on Web3 as well as blockchain. So yeah, these are the things. So today I'm predominantly working again in the innovation space. I'm working on something called CBDCs, which are called central bank digital currencies, as well as infrastructure for cryptos currencies, especially in North America and European markets, and some advanced economies like Singapore, MENA, and Hong Kong. So this has been my journey, and Again, if you ask me, I'm just started my journey. I'm started making little. Uh, let us call it as a warm up in the innovation space. Just getting started there. So that has been my journey, and yeah, if there are any questions you wanted me to ask, especially on innovation front, how innovation is done, how open innovation is looked at, how startups work. Like you said, you are a unicorn club, right? How unicorns, what is my understanding of unicorn and how to, happy to share my perspectives there, right? Yeah, now over to you, all of you.
Yeah, if anybody has any question, they can ask.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned, right, that innovation is something that you use, like the word innovation is something that you use to describe yourself. So I have a question, like when working in an innovation-based environment,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of uncertainty or a lot of chaos, and maybe you may even get sometimes problems to like problems in visualizing your ideas well. So is there any way that you tackle this uncertainty and chaos?
Fantastic question. I think that has been my role across. Uh, the chaos and unambiguity or that gray area is part of innovation. Okay, even if you're growing right as in a professional, right, that always will be there. What you can try to do to mitigate that is to do continuous research on the requirements of your customer. That's the fundamental thing, right? When you people say design thinking or user-centric research, there are multiple terms which are being used. But at the end of it is, at the core of it is, you're creating a product or a service for a user, intended user, right? So you as an innovator, if you can keep all your thoughts towards that particular one persona, which is a primary target group for you, go whenever you have a doubt, go back to the drawing board, see who was your persona, and will that become a priority for them or not. That is step one of filter one, which you should have in your mind, so that you can understand that whatever you're doing, you can, because for everyone the resources are limited. Then you have to take create a strategy, right? And when we say something called strategy, strategy is nothing but sacrifice. Why do I say so? Because you have limited resources and you want to do a lot of things, and you strategize to do one, two, and the 10 in your list will be sacrificed for now. So strategy is sacrifice. So what to sacrifice is what your strategy has to be. Then the prioritization only comes when you do thorough research about your user. And sometimes you take calculated risks based on your reading of the environment. Okay. Even sometimes your user may not know that this is very important. Right. I'll give you a very simple example. Um, if you take an example of recommending text in your Gmail, right, or your keypad, when the original keypad was given, or you've been doing emails for a long time, customer may never have told that smart compose is a very interesting feature, but as a user, they during insights, right, they found, so the product manager or an innovator found some trends that smart compose can actually make engagement pleasant, and for that there is an AI based recommendation engine which is being built at the back end, right? That information is very important to tie it back to your user behavior. So there you take a risk and then add to your to-do list. Now that's the second filter or the second step, right? One is understanding your user, second understanding your environment, and third is doing testing, A/B testing, we call it, in marketing, right? So test your hypothesis with a smaller set of people and see how they are reacting to it, right? And then limit the gray areas or an ambiguity there. That's the only way. There is no other sure shot way to make the completely gray or white and black. Okay, so and if you are becoming innovators, if you are becoming an entrepreneurs who are trying to become that unicorns, right? You should embrace ambiguity. That's the only way we can go ahead. Yeah,
Does that answer your question, Dia?
Yes, thank you very much.
my pleasure.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, they can ask.
I have a question.
Hey, Suruchi, tell me.
Yeah, as you mentioned that, let's consider from a product manager point of view. So a
Mm-hmm.
product manager is someone, who has to deal with multiple stakeholders at the same time. Let's say, taking the users into consideration, taking the development team into consideration. So
Mm-hmm.
as a product manager, what should be the strategy to combine effort taking place in terms of how to develop a product, I mean to listen to the developers point of view or to go ahead with the customer. So how do you figure it out, because there are multiple stakeholders at the same time?
Hmm.
So how do we deal about it?
Uh, there is difference between a product manager and an innovation manager. Then the reason I'm telling you is I'll uh, give you my perspective about how the thought process should be different. Okay. Now, product manager is like a mini CEO. Okay. So they have to run a P&L of a product. And as a product manager, most of the things are set for your product, right? These are the processes, these are the features, these are the client persona or user persona which is already there. So most of these things are set. For innovation manager, most of the things are just a hypothesis, except the persona. And sometimes in innovation, right, what happens is as you go on, as the environment or your ecosystem changes, the persona also changes. Right? The important thing is, I said the value proposition or product market fit, right? Innovation managers usually work around it, like how Dia asked me the other day, there is a lot of ambiguity in it. For product managers, most of the ambiguity is taken care of, but for incremental innovation, there is still ambiguity. Now, let us deal with as a product manager. Definitely, there are multiple stakeholders. So, for you as an product manager, the only thing what should go into your mind is the well-being of the product. Okay, when I say well-being of the product, that is the cash flow, which means that you should be cash positive. Okay, it has to be cash positive, and for that you have to see again what all things can be done as per your user, which can add value to you. And what can happen to product is one, it can increase the engagement levels of your customer, so that if they try to spend more time on your product, or you spend more time or have more frequency of usage for your product, that's a happy thing because that will increase your profit. That's one side of it. Now, other part of it is you add more and more features to it so that you find multiple value propositions with different personas of for your product. Okay. As I told you, right, Gmail is one very nice example, or YouTube is a very good example. It has multiple personas, right? There are content creators, there are political parties, there are fan clubs on it, there are people like us. So YouTube has so many personas, and they try to deal with each one of them in a different way. Okay. Now, as a product manager, should you not think about developers? You should, but that should not be the first priority for you. Okay. Always think about the customer and add feature which can again add back to the value to the product. If it is increasing profitability, please do that. Development team, what I've seen across is comes under different permutations and combinations, right? Some are very product centric, some are very engineering centric, some are very non-innovation centric. So don't, as a stakeholder, uh, you are their client. So behave them like they are your vendors, internal vendor and internal client. So be very sharp, precise, and extremely objective when you're dealing with your engineering team. But your other stakeholders is important. One, because I was speaking about the cash, the health of it. One important stakeholder who gives you cash are two, right? One is your investors. Second is your customer. And investors increase the cash if customer is go on engaging with your product. Very simple. So this is the priority of stakeholders whom a product manager has to look into.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. So initially you mentioned that like a concept about how you can, create startups within organizations.
Hmm.
Right? Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, sure, sure. Uh, there is a very it's a very old concept, but uh, it's happening constantly in multiple organizations. Innovation comes in three types. Okay, one is called open innovation, other thing is called closed innovation, third one is a hybrid model of innovation. Usually, let me explain. Right, open innovation is a concept where an organization goes outside and picks up different intellectual properties created by individuals as startups. They scout for things and try to acquire that particular knowledge, maybe by purchasing them, or if you can say they by copying them. There can be multiple ways. Okay, that is open innovation. You depend on ecosystem around you to pick that and make it part of your product or business as usual. That's open innovation. Now, second is closed innovation, having your R&D centers, getting your subject matter experts inside. You depend on the resources which are internally, and then work on it and get the products to be done. So if you see, Intel is a very good example of closed innovation, as far as I know. Now the third is a hybrid innovation. Hybrid innovation is combination of both. So if you are working on core competencies, you go and tend to start working on closed innovation because you don't want to open up any of your services outside. Now, but apart from that, there may be some peripheral things which you want to do, and you don't want to invest money because open innovation is cheaper and quick to market. Closed innovation is costlier, but you hold the intellectual property for a very long time and you make money out of it. So, as an innovation head or as a CEO, you take a call on the strategy. How do you want to go ahead? But which parts of it should be open, which parts of it closed, and if you combine both of them, is a hybrid innovation. And here, the concept what I want to tell you is on the hybrid innovation, there is a concept called Venture Studio. Venture Studio is a company inside a company, and they don't have restrictions, they don't have constraints of compliance or, if I could say, bureaucracy around them, which a product team inside an organization may have, or an innovation team inside an organization have. I had a venture studio inside BroadRidge. I have a different email IDs, different laptops to work with, a team which is extremely qualified, and it is completely open to go out, pick some interesting for engineering stacks and work on them. Now you see that openness, right? And I go and speak with a startup, go and speak with, like, all of you are there. I can speak with all of you, and if someone is having a very interesting idea and you already have worked with, and I wanted to ingest it, right? Which is it is very easy for me to interact with you and try to create contacts with you because you're not trying to engage Broadridge as an organization, but a venture studio inside Broadridge. Now, what happens is speed of innovation increases, and also your control on that particular product or a project which you're trying to work is much higher than a pure open innovation model because you are co-creating some of the products instead of just acquiring it from the market. So that's what a venture studio model works with. I'll give you one more example. Have you heard about Skunkworks? Skunkworks is again a studio inside Lockheed Martin. Okay, Lockheed Martin is one of the best fighter jets manufacturing company in the world, and Skunkworks creates some of the models which are very cryptic and very advanced from today's normal fighter jets across. So Blackbird 71, SR Knight, so all these like supersonic jets are part of it. So that's how you do, right? Again, you have to think about why do you do it. Most of the innovation happens, right? I was using a term called Horizon 2 and Horizon 3. It usually comes from a McKinsey framework. McKinsey has created a framework which a company or a product team should always have Horizon 1, 2, and 3. Horizon 1 deals with the current product and how do you, or current business and how do you amplify it. Horizon 2 and 3 works on, 3 is more like a visionary products, 2 is the products which may become very relevant to you in maybe next 5 years. So all studios or innovation teams always work on 2 and 3, which are disruptive in nature, and the failure rate or the risk is extremely high. And company don't want to keep that on its own name because for multiple reasons, right? Shareholders are part of it, share price is part of it, the data compliance with existing customer is important, and also legal requirements for existing company. There are multiple threads which makes it difficult for a big company to work on innovation. So that there's a startup inside a company that's called Venture Studio, which is a very elegant model to do traverse around. But it's also costly. It's not so cheap to work on this model.
And like, does creating a venture studio inside a company, like, is the purpose, like, aside from the ones that you mentioned about the entire thing about creating a
Hmm,
hybrid model, like, aside from that, is there like, what is the difference between creating a venture studio and assigning a particular team within a company to work on that same project or work
correct.
on that same idea?
Got it. Suppose uh, fundamentally, I told you about the risk, right? A risk comes under multiple things. It's all about managing risk. Now, what are different types of risks which are there? One is a reputation risk. Okay, company, if something fails, how can we deal with it? All that is one. Second, if you're a venture studio, your investors or a board knows that this particular team is experimenting constantly, so they allow you to have cushion for the failure. Okay, that's the executive kind of a risk which you mitigate. Next is, as I told you, the time delay risk, right? Most of the startups fail or win only because of the timing. Timing contribute like more than 50% of the success ratio. If you launch a product little late or early, the product will fail. So you should be ready with the product. It is better to create a product and keep it ready with you and launch it at the right time instead of doing a reactive kind of an innovation, right? So for that reason, time to innovate should be faster. Now, again, that is the risk associated to business continuity. Now, one more risk, most important risk is about your company's, like as I said, value risk, right? Where what happens is, example, I'll tell you. Uh, if you saw, like Google also has a venture studio called X, right? X dot company is a venture studio for Google. What it created is you heard about a company called Waymo, which is a self-drive car which Google has created. And there is a project called Calico, which is on health monitoring using your the tears inside your eyeballs to monitor your diabetes or other health monitors. Now, think about it, right? Google is a consumer centric tech company suddenly getting into automobile as a sector or a health as a sector, right? Instruments. Now, putting put these things, if Google wants to take onus of that and say that we are getting into automobile as a vertical, and if they don't win there, that becomes a problem for them when it comes to their share price. Okay, you are getting into verticals which were not ventured before by the company. Correct. So like I told you, I was doing BroadRidge is a 40-year-old company which has mega customer base in North America. Like they are of the leader when it comes to investor communications there. But we at Venture Studio works on crypto assets at all, which is not traditional, which is very experimental. It can go completely wrong if the regulator changes some regulations, right? So that kind of a risk we are ready to take as a small venture studio, but Broadridge may not because it's a listed company in NYSE. So it's for protecting all the stakeholders.
I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, Ranganath has. So yeah, go
Yes, sir. So actually, I mean, earlier I had a follow-up on into how companies like Broadridge or Google safeguard themselves or manage risk. When with the whole venture studio concept, but I think you've answered that.
on. Okay.
The other question was, I want to take you back a bit on your NPCI experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, if I'm correct, NPCI was majorly backed by the Indian government, and it formed from there, and then you went into innovations of frameworks. Now, uh, if I mean, if it's a startup or a corporate, it's a whole different thing how you perceive innovation. But from a government's perspective, you are targeting 1.4 billion population,
Okay.
and you're experimenting something really new. It's equivalent to Gmail Smart Compose or an iPhone, right? Like
I
today, how
mean,
we use RuPay cards or
definitely.
UPIs today.
Yes.
So, what was the thought process, and how does government as an institution of innovation perceive it, even before you take that risk?
Nice question. Governments usually work as a regulator, okay? But also they have to have a soft hand of a facilitator also. Okay, let us take an example. I'll give you a very different example, right? Like let us see Vande Bharat is an innovation from government. So government's ministry or railway board is kind of a regulator there. What they do is they create a sandbox, or they create a testing ground for all the new products. Okay. And they facilitate some of the agencies to create and innovate products and then test them in a limited basis. And once they show favorable results, and once they are okay, then they democratize it, or massification of the particular product happens. Now, having said that, it's not so easy. Okay, IRDAI, SEBI, IFSCA, I'm just taking some fintech regulator names, all have opened their sandboxes and they constantly seek for ideas. And once the ideas are submitted, new age thing, government also has a setup of experts who constantly look into it. They get umpteen amount of requests or ideas to do. Okay, but that is the reason they set up bodies like NPCI, which are very trusted, and they know they are always with the same end user. For government, citizen is an end user, right, or end beneficiary of the product, so their well-being is at its peak. Now if they create an organization or a special purpose vehicle with the same vision of enriching the lives of the citizen, so they deploy the particular product with them, and or a service or a product order, they create it, and if it is working well, then they democratize it. That's how usually government works. This is a broad framework which it takes with everything, right? Now, example, I'll tell you, space is one sector. You've started seeing a lot of private players getting into it. And how did government do it? Earlier it was extremely regulated space, right? Now again at an ISRO level, what they thought is, let us make ISRO as a higher body, and then they created a one more platform or an organization called, I'm forgetting the name. It's called no, Space Dex is something. Yeah. In Space, correct. In Space is one more organization or a special purpose vehicle which constantly speak with multiple ideas, and they try to figure out what is good for Indian space economy or Indian space industry. And then they start seeking their help to promote Indian space domain as a sector. Once it is good, then they give orders to them. Defense is a very good sector. If you can see, it's opening up. So government in multiple sectors is opening up, but good that it started with uh, citizen services or financial services was the first one to do it, because multiple regulated entities were there. And sorry, and players who are working there are much more mature than others. So that's how government does it. And if you want me to double click on an example, right? Let me take an example of UPI. UPI was not created by one person or NPCI as such, right? UPI as an entity, there were multiple people involved. Something called iSpirit was part of it as a as an industry body, or as an organization which had a lot of research fellows inside it. They were part of it. NPCA was also part of it. Um, and some of the experts from RBI were also working on it. And there was IMPS, which was already built by NPCI, which gave that foundation to UPI. Then have you experienced in immediate payment service IMPS? I don't know. We may have forgotten it also completely because of UPI. But they found out that see, the product market fit was not good, but the feature was so good of real time money transfer. Let us make it easy. That's where the India stack came into picture. Okay. Then there was a limited uh, use cases hackathons which was invited. I was curating many hackathons with many limited players, and when UPI was not out at all, then many startups came, took the stack, and tried to create multiple products and use cases on it. Then we submitted, as NPCA submitted these use cases to the relevant stakeholders in the bureaucracy. And once it is okay, and then we got a nod from regulator to launch it across. That too, it goes incrementally, because like you said, at a citizen scale, whenever you want to launch, there has to be multiple lenses which has to be looked into. So you constantly evolve. But as a government, what they say is, once they launched it, it's so difficult to retract, right? So they make sure that they try to anticipate all the problems, and they put risk mitigation barriers for everything. Like two-factor authentication is one. Now, if you see something called contactless payment, it started with 2,000 rupees first. Now it goes up to 10,000 rupees. But you select how much you have to go. So they started looking at data and insights. They slowly, incrementally open up that innovation, or extend the boundaries. That's how they do.
Very interesting, sir. Just to follow up questions.
Mhm.
One, what is the journey like? Like, how long does it take for you to start with, identifying tech stacks, or, starting from hackathons to actually, the implementation happens, and probably key, what are the milestones like? And second, for a, young unicorn, who is sitting right here, or, is coming out of college, how do you approach, or how do you identify, such avenues that are coming up from the government agencies itself?
So it's a loaded question. It has three questions. First is how much time. That is completely there is no answer to justify it. Some of the solutions may happen very quickly. I'll give you one good example of it, and some of them can take like years together. It's completely based on domain, kind of problem you're solving, and kind of resources you have, and also the timing which is required. Okay, let me give you one example. Covin as a platform. It was done immediately because it was part of priority one for all the stakeholders during COVID. Right? If you think you have to do that today, it would take like minimum 4 or 5 years, test, get it back. But it has its own problems, right? COVID also had problems, some bugs constantly. They did some hackathons to find those bugs, clear it out. So yeah, that how if government wants to do, that is how quickly they can do. But they have to know that there are some problems which you may face in the long run. Okay, that's one. And second, I'm sensing that you're only asking about innovation with the government, correct? The question is right. And the second part of it is, if you see some of the projects like uh, how innovation projects which took a lot of time is like RTGS as an example. Let me take a very old one, but it took like 20 years to come out. That happened. So that's the priorities and the skill set or mindset of the current dispensation. So all of things come into matter. Uh, so this is part one of the answer. Now part two of it, what are the milestones you have asked, right? What are the milestones we need to take care of? First is definitely the first milestone is to have product market fit. That's for everyone. Anything what you're trying to do, you have to achieve product market fit. Product market fit can be achieved only when you understand who is your customer and what are their how deep you understand your customer is very important there. Then you create a product market fit. Now second part of it is your minimum viable product. From product market fit to minimum viable product, how much time you take to reach there depends on your resources and priorities of your investors and stakeholders. Okay. Now, once the MVP has been achieved, if it is good enough, then it gets into POC. POC or beta testing, whatever you can say, that's the other milestone. And the priorities are very different again in this particular stage. Here you work on only on bugs, incremental innovation, and finishing of the product is important in this particular stage. In the stage before, it was all about creating a product quickly was important. Here, refining the product is very important. And the last stage is introduction and growth. Okay. Now here governments win because they have massive distribution, they have all the customers, and also sometimes it is captive, right? For COVID, there is no other, or for DigiLocker, there is no other competition. You only have to go with DigiLocker. All right. So that's the reason it is pretty easy. But if it comes to email, you can go to Outlook also, you can go to Gmail also. So that's how it is. Uh, so yeah, the last part is all about growth. So if you're working as a startup, then that's where your investor may help. That's where your creativity may help. There is a very interesting concept called product-led growth. So product-led growth can help you. So growth has multiple different models, right? One of the famous one, which is right now, is product-led growth, where your product creates a community, you share the product, the hooked model of Nirayal, all those come into picture. That's at the last stage of it. Okay, so these are the four milestones which you need to look into whenever you're creating product. It's not a rocket science; it is very simple. But as an as a future leader, you should understand at different stage what are your priorities. That's the most important thing, so that it will make your decision making easy. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Your last part of the question.
As a young unicorn or a grad out of college, how do we,
Work
identify
with
these opportunities? Yeah,
regular opportunities in government, right?
yeah, yeah.
I may tell you, right, I have not seen multiple students uh, or fresh companies win some government contracts or anything. Okay, I'll be candid with you. Government, like you said at the first point, right? We have to deal with 1.4 billion people. That's the scale you want to do it. Government don't want to take a risk to put everything in the hand of a fresh grad whose experience is still not so good, right? So they do multiple things, right? Like Startup India, Startup Hackathons, MyGov. They take all the ideas. It's not that they don't curate and all. They do all those things. But directly, I have not seen any examples personally myself. Okay. So the best idea for a young grad or a young startup founder to get to that level is always have partners with you who has existing relationship with government. Example, right? I'll give you a very simple example. When I was at NPCI, there were multiple startups I was working with. Some of them were done by startup founders who are very fresh out of college, or some of them were from experienced companies. Now, if you were able to convince NPCI to add your product or a feature inside UPI or maybe any other product, that's how you work with government. These agencies are very important for you. So you partner with them and then democratize your innovation. Uh, Understood? So that's the best way for you to grow. Uh, See some best partners if you are not having that kind of a stature in the ecosystem.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Uh, Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Simran.
Yeah, so I have a question regarding blockchain. So,
Mhm.
blockchain technology often faces criticism regarding scalability, energy consumption, and also regarding the regulations, right?
Agree.
So, how do you think what role will design thinking play in crafting innovation solution?
Okay, design thinking for blockchain, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Two-part question. Very interesting question. Um, Blockchain as a technology, I was telling you about the timing of it, right? Blockchain as a technology was there in the ecosystem maybe from 1980s or before that too. Even AI was also part of it before that. But why did they become famous? AI, why did it become famous today? I'll give you I'm using AI because you'll understand it more. That the computing speeds have become cheaper and cheaper. Okay. Today, if you see, uh, for you to do a Google search, earlier for an individual, it used to take around the energies consumed used to take around. I read somewhere that how much energy you take to heat a cup of coffee in your microwave, that is the kind of energy which is consumed by clouds to for one Google search. Okay. Now, for GPTs to give you an answer for each query, it takes around 50x more than that. See, economics has to work for any kind of a product. Now, if I go back to it, right, if it is 50x, then my fundamental reference point was one search, right? If a product is able to create next product which is much better than the earlier one, because GPTs give you a lot of context, lot of features, better usability, but at the same unit economics. Today it is not happening, but if it is for same unit economics, then it's a win-win situation for everyone. Because of Nvidia's, you have seen the Nvidia price, share price going up, right? The whole thing is because they were able to introduce to the market computing devices which are much more cheaper than their predecessors. Okay. And then what happens is once that particular tech or hardware is available for you, then the concepts which you have created like 3 decades ago can easily be implemented now, and the proposition can be given to your user. Okay. Now, similarly, cryptography was part or the tokens or creating token or tokenization was there 2 decades ago too. But if you have to implement at a global level L1 open protocols, you need so much computing power to do it, right? For every transaction, it requires so much computing. It's also distributed computing for blockchain. If you ask me, are there no benefits? Definitely there are benefits. That's the reason people are going bullish about it. But the only problem is unit economics. Now, for you to g- like, let us take Bitcoin as an example, right? All the altcoins I'll speak about later. Uh, Doing a transaction on Bitcoin or approving a transaction of Bitcoin may take 5 minutes for today, and the amount of energy it uses is extremely high. And to create one more block, that's where the mining happens, takes so much energy to do it, right? Is it really worth it? Today it is worth it because it is being traded as an asset and it has already got 100K USD and more as worth, right? Uh, so that's the question goes back, right? That's the reason a user of particular or a stakeholder in the ecosystem of a blockchain will go back and see if the money is making sense for me or not. Okay. Now that's first part of it. So that is the reason blockchain uh, is useful by its features. There is no doubt about it. But when is that depends on multiple factors. That is hardware, that is users' acknowledgement to that particular feature, or the competing products not giving that value is also very important things which you need to consider. Today, why do you want to have a blockchain based payment systems when you have UPI, right? It is much more faster, cheaper, and for an end consumer, it is good, and regulator is also backing up. So it doesn't make sense for you to go to a blockchain-based payment system. But think about it when you are completely using that for a global kind of cross-border payments. So during that time, what happens is the cost is extremely high for doing a cross-border payment from country to country, and the regulations are very different. So then you may want to see, why can't I use a cryptocurrency which is pretty globally done, and I can use a tokenized asset to trade, and the value of interchange between both the entities can also be very less. So that's where the this thing comes, and this is directly relevant to your design thinking. What does design thinking say? First, it is user centric, right? User is at the center, and at the end, when you are doing testing, pose that to take feedback, and then you again put it inside. So if you see today, there are around 25,000 cryptocurrencies across the world. Okay. And most of them have been created based on different use cases. Everything started at a Bitcoin. Then they said Bitcoin has so many problems, let me create some other altcoins. Then say Bitcoin is only here, or the other coins are only catering to one kind of a problem, then let me go to other. Then dApps have come, then there are DAOs to govern them have. Machines have come and it created a big crypto ecosystem. Now, if you ask me, design thinking is there in crypto, it's extremely high than any other things, and it is extremely fungible also to create your own tokens there based on the user group. Uh, Again, I'll go back. I'm just going a little deeper on that. Uh, to user centricity back, right? User centricity has one important element called unit economics, which everyone has to look into. Tomorrow, if I see that, right, if quantum computing comes, what does quantum computing do? Computing does two things. One is it reduces the cost of computation extremely low. And second, it also reduces the time to compute also. Now, if your cost of computing and time to compute is getting lesser, then blockchains are a no-brainer. Then everyone want to use blockchain. I was able to answer your question or confused it more.
Yeah, but I'm just still not able to understand the criticism regarding the blockchain. Like how we will address that? I mean, if it's very helpful for us, as you have
Mm-hmm.
said, but how we will address that criticism then?
No, okay. Tell me what is the criticism you're pointing out. Let me
So,
know.
like the energy consumption, then the
Mm.
regulation, and the scalability.
Agree, agree. Scalability, again, come back to a point. If the computing speeds are lower, then there's no problem. You can go ahead and do it. And second, you said about energy consumption, right? That's what I was speaking to you. If I can reduce the cost of computing, that means energy taken by a computer is lower, then you can do it around. So most of the miners, especially for blockchain, right, they use solar power, or they're mostly in the countries where natural gas is used as a, or renewable energy is used as a source, and they put their nodes there. So they're trying to mitigate, but like I said, till the time the technology becomes pretty obvious for every user to get it at cheaper price, till that time it is not done. Now, one more thing is about regulation, which you spoke. Actually, that is the only important criticism which one has to worry about, right? Because a lot of money laundering happens using blockchain. A lot of hawala happens there, right? Or the cryptocurrencies that can only be removed again using a blockchain only. The CBDCs are a very good example for it. Anonymity makes Hawala easy, right? If I remove the anonymity as a feature from your currencies, then it is straightforward, no problem. Suppose if Simran has uh, digital rupee in her wallet, which regulator knows that it is owned by Simran, and you have sent it to your colleague in maybe Netherlands. They know the whole trail. That's okay. Then government is happy. Once you take care of it, it is done. So there are multiple experiments happening on it that I can tell you. But it is good that that particular system is being tested continuously uh, for all these problems. Only then it can evolve.
One final question just related to this entire discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so like usually the blockchains, the primary utilization of blockchains that government usually discourages is regarding the creation of cryptocurrencies, right? Because
Correct.
decentralized currencies are essentially something that government doesn't want too much popularity. The government doesn't
No,
encourage it too
government
much.
wants hold on the transactions.
Yeah,
Transparency, transparency. Blockchain says it is transparent, but it is not.
yeah,
Transparency is only for the transactions, but not for the. You can't know the user there. That's the problem. So government
yeah,
wants
but that
ultra
is the
transparent.
essential purpose of a digital, like basically a cryptocurrency, right? It gives that anonymity.
Anonymity.
Otherwise, what is the difference between a centralized currency and a decentralized currency in the end?
So decentralized currency has its own again. It has multiple things, and anonymity is a feature which the current cryptocurrencies currencies are saying that we will provide you. But is that okay for a sovereign country? Is the question. Correct. To my understanding, whatever I have interacted with multiple regulators in UK, Canada, EU, and Australia, and India too, they are not happy with that. Right. So that is the reason even today in India, they are only allowing those crypto exchanges which do KYC of their customer before opening up the wallet. So yeah, that's how the world is, man. I think I don't think so. There is something which will come, regulators will say, no, we are not required in the ecosystem. Please go ahead and do it. I don't see such kind of a situation coming back. But yeah, except that, everything else they acknowledge and they're working towards it, right? That is the reason these CBDCs have come, central bank digital currencies, which
Hmm.
gives you exactly those features what a cryptocurrency does. Just to add one more point to it, blockchain as a technology, nobody is discouraging like all the vaccines by so I know one of my friend has started this company called Statwig, which tracks maybe 50 or 60% of vaccines around the world on the blockchain. So they work with WHO very closely, and they do that. So we're pretty happy if it comes to supply chain or if I can say any other use case or identity. If you see, have you ever used DigiYatra? You
Yeah,
have,
I
right?
have.
It's on blockchain. Hyperledger Fabric is the stack which they use. So government discourages only when it comes to currency and extreme high level of anonymity for them. So that's the feature right now.
Got it. Yeah, it was a very informative discussion. So I guess we are at the end of the session, I guess. We have a ritual in DT when for all
Yeah.
the guest speaker sessions where at the end of the session, some of the people who have listened to you reflect on what they have learned
Okay.
throughout this entire discussion. So yeah, if anybody wants to reflect, they can go ahead.
So I should choose someone or how is it? So
You
people
can
who did
choose.
not speak, let me choose them then.
Yes, you can also choose.
Yeah, I think Amrita is there. Let's. I don't. Sorry for putting on a spot.
Yeah, so I think the major learning that I had from the session was uh, having the concept of venture studio is really good for a company to innovate. Let's say there's a famous company and they want to get into some vertical. It would put too many risks for the company. But if they use the concept of venture studio, it will help them mitigate the risk in terms of financial management as well as their reputation. So they are mitigate. So it's a very new and a good concept that I learned about.
Interesting. Okay. Glad you learned about it. But just to tell you, for you it may be new, but even I learned about it just 5 6 years ago. But the concept is there from like maybe 20 30 years around. Again, even this right, venture studio, the timing is very important. Now people are realizing that having venture studios are important. That's the reason they're investing, like blockchain or AI. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you all then.
Yeah.
Long
We
question.
would have liked to have two more reflections. Okay.
Go on, go on. Oh, two more. Why not? Sandeep and Archana are also there. They didn't get a chance to speak. Why not?
Okay. Okay, sure. Sandeep, you can go ahead.
Okay, so my reflection would be around this venture studio that you talked about, having these three types of companies which are like open, closed, as well as hybrid, which can be utilized by the companies to you know innovate basically. So while in this hybrid, in the open space, we go to the other parties and it is very cheap as well. So it can be utilized when you don't have many resources. And while the closed one, you can have your own ecosystem where you are doing the research and all innovation. And in
Mm-hmm.
this hybrid one, it is like a mixture of open and closed, where you try to where you gave this example of venture studio, which which mitigates the risk between, which mitigates the risk of not losing the brand value for the company's like main products and main image, and they can still innovate and try out different other sectors as well. So yeah, that would be my reflection.
Glad.
Yeah, Archana, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So my reflection would be around what he has mentioned about in a government sectors how innovation can be used, like how in a government within a seconds during COVID the decisions were taken, and when you compare that to the other things like RTGS to implement it, it took like 20 years to happen. So that is the main difference that can happen in the government sectors, and it can be entirely different in the private sectors. It can happen fast. And the another reflection that I learned is like we want to know any startup or the any innovations that we are doing, we need to understand the journey, what it is, and identify what is the right time to implement it. And to know the milestones, we need to know our users. These are the things I learned. And another concept is like how to start within a company, how to start a startup. That was like a new thing, that new idea that I got in.
I guess the concept of venture studio was not very, known to everyone. So I guess all of us learned about it through your discussions.
No, glad you liked it.
Yeah, it's like any feedbacks that you have for us, like through this discussion, anything that you would like to mention?
No, nothing. I think not feedback, but as such, glad I liked it. I never had this kind of discussion before, so good. It's not so many people, but not having this concentrated discussion usually helps with you. And also, I was pretty curious how your questioning pattern was, right? I liked it. It was also being reflecting my life, and I was just trying to get some anecdotes out of my experience. Hope it helped you all. Yeah, one thing I do is I'll put my LinkedIn profile in the chat. Make sure that you all connect with me. Let's stay
Sure,
in touch.
sure.
Uh, let me just do that. Okay.
Okay, it was nice talking with you, Mr. Abhinav.
My pleasure. Hope everyone do well in your life. Please connect with me on LinkedIn wherever if you want some help, or if you think you can help me in some kind of a innovation I am doing. My doors are always open. Please
Sure.
ping me on my LinkedIn. Let's connect. And all the best for your future. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for
Thank
spending time.
you.
You
My pleasure. My pleasure.